dead. You were swimming home because your country was at war and the streets were full of men and guns. You were swimming home because walking wasn't possible anymore. You were swimming home dragging a bag of memories behind you. They weighed you down until you let them go. And then you were swimming home empty-handed. You were swimming home until you couldn't swim any longer and there was no home left anywhere to go to. You were swimming home when they pulled you out of the water and wrapped you in a towel and you told them you were swimming home, you had to swim home one last time, but they didn't hear you, couldn't hear you. You were right the first time. You knew your own condition better than they did, better than anyone. You wanted them to let you go, to send you home, but they didn't understand. They did what they thought was best, was right. The only thing they knew to do to save what they thought was your life. You told them no, but they didn't hear you. They dragged you along to wherever they were determined to drag you, but swimming was over. Home was over. Life was over. You were swimming, and then you weren't. You were alive, and then you weren't. You were you, and then you weren't. Still, you saw them trying to dry you, trying to warm you, trying to wake you up. Never, you said, but they didn't hear you. Nothing was left, not one thing. Never, you said again and again. Never, never, never. That is the opening piece of Beacon Radiant called Swimming Home by Catherine Gammon. And I thank Catherine out there for letting me read that to start out our Zoom today. We'll probably have a Zoom coming up when you'll get to hear Catherine read the piece herself, and it'll be interesting to contrast that. And I hope I don't come off too badly, but she wrote it after all. Welcome to our first Zoom reading for the Great Weather for Media anthology called Beacon Radiant. My name's David Lawton. I'm one of the editors of Great Weather for Media, and I'm psyched that I drew the first reading, and we have a fantastic group of readers representing today from around the country. And so I'm excited to get this thing going. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first reader. Celeste Ramos is a writer of poetry, fiction, scripts, and essays from Brooklyn, New York. She's also a voiceover artist on international ads and storytelling projects. Her chapbook, Come Back For Me, came out in 2023 from Bottled Cap Press. But right now, we get to hear Celeste Ramos read live on the Zoom. Celeste Ramos.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, Great Weather. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you. Cheers. I'm having a beer for all of us. I miss our times at the bar. I have 4 little pieces for you. I'm going to start with the one that's in the anthology. And it's a divorce poem, which some of you may remember. Was kind of the backstory for it. And it's about the moment that I had to throw away my now ex-husband's shirt, which was the last thing that I had of his when I moved. So of course it comes from our gorgeous anthology, and this is Shirt. A shirt you really liked wound up in a dumpster 5,000 miles from the last place you wore it. Before it was trash, and after it was yours, it was mine. I liked the sleeves. The charcoal gray. It was a way of keeping your arms around mine, even when I couldn't understand why. I threw it away because I had to. My therapist says it's good to. The part of me that fears death needed to. I have to find a way to live that has nothing to do with you, and I don't know what that is. Maybe through nudity, through absence, through the chill of being shirtless, of not having it in the car, in the empty passenger seat, or around my hips to make up for the length of a dress. To not have it with me, to not have it, is not having you, but having me, maybe. And that's what I need, maybe. Thank you. That's Shirt. One thing that a lot of people don't know about Shirt is that it's actually part of two poems, which I have never read before. So the other piece, or the second piece I'm reading is called Counterfeit Dream. I had it all, you know. My trains had a stop, my grocery receipts had a target, my bills had a name. There was always someone to hold the camera. I had a number to dial at the end of a long night. I didn't have to swallow jokes alone on the bus so no one thought I was crazy. I didn't have to hide my face when I was sad. My tears had a sleeve, my head had a pillow, too, when I felt sneaky. I remember when these things felt cheap as a dropped French fry, excessive as that spare button in a new jacket that never gets saved, that winds up in a fish's gill before saving you any time. I remember when my riches were not enough for dialing into a counterfeit dream. Things are not coins, they're circles you have to keep filling in. More than 5,000 miles from where I saw it and said, that one's it. But mine wound up in a dumpster. Mine wound up. There was a night sometime after we split when I saw the dark windows of our old place, knowing our dancing ghosts lived there, knowing there was a little crack in the wall where I slipped in a note that said thank you the last day we moved out. I remember then, as I do now, the way that window looked when I was younger, hundreds of years younger than now. The way that silhouette would cross the frosted pane and I'd be relieved at the end of a long day. I knew I wouldn't have to check for my key. I had a door that would open. I had a night. I had a morning. I had. Thank you. The next one is called Today, which is about many days, but definitely today because I've been in a weird mood today. And this is today. Today, I sat at the black kitchen table and burned a box of matches while singing along to Iggy Pop. It was sad, Iggy. Sad like me when he gets all raspy and slow, his voice warping like he's been between dimensions, vibrating through note by note, like me when I get all guilty and low and need to watch something, anything, start, live and finish, spark, burn and black out, wood warping like they're between dimensions, melting my vicious thoughts, flame by flame. Thanks. This last piece is a new one that I've never read before, so I'm happy to share with you. And it's called Vampirism. What they don't tell you about vampires is that you can get your blood back. They'll find you out walking, doused in light like perfume, and once they leave you for dead in the dark, start walking. You don't want to be a wound on legs. You don't want to be showing your holes for more creatures to climb in. No, walk the street during the blue hour under an unconscious sky and find something funny. Think of something funny, like how sweet you were for thinking a night could be just that you could come out into the morning untouched in a world like this. Laugh until you're gasping, until you feel metal in your mouth, because the air in this world is dust and ash and rain, and the air in this world has blood in it. How can't it? If you breathe in deep and hard with resolve, your bones will know you're standing. Inside, you will weep blood like those ceramic virgins that came before you. When you fill again, you will sleep until the day is a red stain at the bottom of the night, and you'll get up at the fairgrounds again, a little stronger than before. Just don't drink anyone else's blood. Thank you very much. That's my set. Thank you again, everybody. It's been a pleasure to read for you. I miss you a ton. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you, Celeste Ramos. Thank you so much for starting it out for us. Philip Fried has published 8 books of poetry. The most recent of these is Among the Galicians, Salmon Poetry Ireland 2020, which was reviewed in the spring 2023 issue of the American Book Review. And now I ask Philip to take himself. Oh, he already did. Philip Freed.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be in the anthology. I'll read the first poem, will be 3 poems. The first will be from the anthology. It's called Comfort. Pet or rifle in my arms, you're seeing me in the selfie I took on the day I decided would be the first of, you know the saying. Hell-bent on a program of rapid self-improvement, I'd lower my blood pressure as I stroked the flank of the rifle or therapy animal, a highly trained dog with an excellent work ethic and pleasant ways. My self-esteem would receive a boost, skyrocketing, and I'd be reconnecting with random others in the park, among fellow dog walkers, or on a cyber stroll through conspiracy communities. Comfort, a zone where I lived or was leaving. In my mind, I was fastening flashy yellow tape around the relevant sites. Choosing the right breed of therapy dog or trigger from trigger groups was the key, and not to squeeze too hard, but ease myself into appreciating all that accompanies a faithful guide that lives on its warm muzzle, a compensator or a flash hider that masks whatever gives away your position. With pet or rifle, I'd step out of the narrow room of myself and into the wide open world as a team, in tandem, to take the long dream of world into my dream. The second poem is, And What Should I Do in Illyria? A Parkinson's Patient Responds. It has 2 epigraphs. The first is from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Enter Viola, a captain and sailors. Viola, what country, friends, is this? Captain, this is Illyria, lady. Viola, and what should I do in Illyria? The second epigraph says, Shakespeare's father was a glove maker. Some in the audience, saved from the shipwreck of daily life, ask their neighbors, what country, friends, is this? And hear the reply, Illyria, which is a nation fabricated entirely of words, where emotions flow in meter, but where gender, men masquerading as women playing men, is high fantastical. Their national diet with musicians attending is music, food of love. Their currencies in exchange are fungible size, and their refugees a single pair of twins. Then the maker who washed us safely ashore in this clement country sees us out again with a hey-ho back into the wind and the rain. How deftly a good wit can manipulate a chevril glove, soft and pliable, turning the wrong side outward. So as Malvolio, I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you. Cross-gartered and tight, vanishes into the offstage oblivion, leaving only the yellow stain of his humiliation. And no small gain to ourselves, mockery's stockholders. The maker will soon be concocting an honest Iago, who through soliloquies and asides will render us, tragedy's complicit witnesses. Things to do in Illyria, falling in love with vowels and avowals, running the amatory go-between messenger service, joining the galliard of leaps, hops, and other similar figures, leading to the final landing, the posture, governed always by humor and flowing genders, constantly postponing your departure from this nation of words to return to the falters and tremors at sea in the slow shipwreck of your body. The third and last poem is To Be and Not to Be. In this latest will and testament, a witness soliloquy in the law, my head declares it's of sound mind, but begins to feel more like a skull with a richest state of emptiness as my properties melt into air, thin air. The cloud-capped towers of ego's empire, the solemn temples of the self. I'm Hamlet, chin wagging at Yorick's jawbone, me talking to myself deceased, one proper noun worn down to pronouns. But if music is the zest of decay, play on, a tune of infinite jest. That skull tra-la is a wishing well, in which I deposit my life savings, never amounting to more than the silence of a few falling coins that gather out of space as they tumble, a vast harvest. I inherit the universe, and in the same breath, bequeath it to all who be falling after me. Thank you.
Philip Freed, everybody, let's hear it. Thank you very much, Philip. Nafisa A. Iqbal is a Bangladeshi writer holding an MFA from Columbia University's Creative Writing Program, where she has been awarded the Philippe P. de Alba Fellowship in the chair of from the chair of the program. Their work has appeared or is forthcoming in The Rumpus, Ex-Puritan, Folio Literary, Fourth Genre, and the Commonwealth Foundation's Atta magazine. They have been shortlisted for the 2020 Commonwealth Short Story Prize, and in 2022 received an honorable mention for the Robert and Adele Schiff Awards for Fiction. But now we're going to hear Nafisa I. Iqbal. Nafisa.
Hi, David. Thank you. So I'd like to start with my piece, Material Abstraction, Mutual Attraction, which was published in this beautiful Beacon Radiant anthology. And just a little backstory is this piece was originally written for a class during my MFA called Science Fiction Poetics. So here we go. Some lovers woo you with a curated playlist, some with handwritten letters, others with a romantic dinner, but not in a center. Her idea of romance was to study me. The prototype Innocenta created was impressive. First, she created a speech identification algorithm that identified abstract terms in a sentence, ones without physical reference. Freedom, patience, evil, luck, destiny, love, liberty, those were obvious. Then words like culture, birthday, information, play, wealth, words that almost had some heft. Absent-mindedly, you might connect them with physical objects, but in fact, the word birthday did not automatically connote candles, presents, cake, nor wealth connote jewels, gold, limousine. In fact, they were hollow of physicality, and you released them up into the air to float in the realm of abstraction with their conceptual, metaphysical, theoretical cousins, passivism, loss, and surprisingly, ghost. Next, Innocenta mined a database of materials, things you could touch and feel and lift and bite. She started with building materials, stumbling upon an archive for engineers, concrete, plastic, ferrite steel. Next, she mined textures from a website about wall paint, eggshell, matte, satin. Next, colors, ochre, mauve, cornflower blue, types of fabrics, silk, damask, lycra. Finally, crystals, jasper, hematite, lapis lazuli. There were a million other categories she could have chosen, but she chose these for no other reason than they came to mind and were easily available. I thought it was romantic when she asked me to be her lab rat. For our 5th date, Innocenta wanted to take me for a spin on the prototype. Why me? I'd asked flirtatiously. She said it was because I was a poet, but I knew that this was going to be a most intimate act. The electrodes at my temples were supposed to pick up subtle and tiny electrical charges that result from brain cell activity. Words and images appeared on the screen before me of physical materials, colors, textures. Then came the abstract terms, no image this time, just thin white words on black screen. I was told to imagine the essence of these words as physical objects. An ever-fluctuating abstract painting moved behind my eyelids. I visualized the word intuition, and it floated before me in a blue orb. Afterwards, Innocenta said she would superimpose a graph of how my brainwaves reacted to materiality with that of me visualizing the abstract terms as objects to see if they could correlate with physical references I had been shown. She texted me a few days later. Attraction, she wrote, is chrome, cement, acid pink, tiger's eye. I replied, that sounds about right. Next, I'd like to read some poems for you. The first of these poems is one I wrote at a time when I kind of found myself having a morbid fascination towards death and the creative ways that humans relate to it. So this is called Death, You're the Elephant in the Room, and was published in the Gyroscope Review in 2023. Death, you're the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about at parties and even less so at funerals. I find myself spiraling into your orbit, your enormous gravitational core. But did you know miles and miles of exhumed bones hold up the cobblestones of Paris, hallowed grounds to make hollowed mounds of quarries, carved out arteries of the city's heart? A few times a year, subterranean parties flash strobe lights violet over mandible and coccyx. Death, don't you know, the big and the small, I love it all. My mind tangles in tombstone typography and unsolved murders lovingly replicated in dollhouse dioramas, bullet holes tiny and nimble as the holes of a thimble, and the crafty killer's fake suicide note duplicated in miniature with sleek strokes of a single bristle brush. Life, don't you see? Some of us live in the gap, the antra, the negative space formed of breath and caesura. Why don't you give us some privacy for death and I to stomp out our beat? So the next one is a satirical prose poem called Gundog, and this is a weird one, so you've been warned. So Gundog. We, the people of the United States, were a fearful bunch. This fear lived in our bodies even as we coiled ourselves around our soft insides like rattlesnakes hissing, "Don't tread on me." But good news, the fear is in exile. Let me tell you, the guy who founded the Gundog startup made a fantastic fortune. This is a land of opportunity, after all, and America rewards the entrepreneurial spirit. Now, every American family has its Gundog, resting vigilantly behind the white picket fence. They come with their shape cut into the foam padding of the black plastic case and spring up the moment you call, "Here, boy," all perky and loaded. Their muzzles aren't wet with slobber, but a round abyss glinting with death. At first, the children wanted to play with them, but cold metal under the guise of a warm, furry body created a dissonance that left them dizzy and retching. Something of the canine psyche remained in the Gundog initially, and many postmen lost their lives to Gundog attacks. Shipping and delivery were grossly delayed, and then delayed even further by the Postal Workers Union striking. All the Gundogs were recalled and newer versions were released, ones that didn't riddle the people's Amazon packages of table fans and anti-aging retinol cream with bullet holes and holdups. In America, we love our gun dogs. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun dog. No one ever told us that the antidote to fear is to live with it, literally under its constant watchful gaze. One day when our fear has been totally vanquished, we won't need gun dogs anymore. We'll sell them off to the Middle East to bring peace to that brutish region. And my final poem today was written in late 2023 with all that was happening and is happening in the world weighing very heavily on my mind. And this one is called Union Unraveling. It all began with skin and oil and sizzle. No, it all began with the tipping over of a fry pan. At the hospital, you learn a new word, debridement, from French debridement, literally an unbridling. In your case, not of joy or horse, but of dead, decimated skin. You are lucky, they tell you, to be born to a country with the largest skin bank in the world. You emerge from the surgery closer in essence to a quilt than you ever thought you could be. A strip of skin slightly darker than your own, wrapping up the length of your arm like a life-giving vine. When the dressing is finally unwound, you touch it gingerly like the first scintillating stroke of a lover's arm, not knowing what awaits your love, union, or unraveling. Soon there are dreams. One is about playing hide and seek in an olive grove, wishing yourself dappled behind the branches. Another about bodies stacked so close you don't know whose bullets are running down your back. A cage like a blocked artery of unbuckled belts and scanned bags. Another about a mother, not yours, but yours, holding her calloused hands that are less callous than her soul. You see it in her defeated dream eyes. She appears again, your not mother, but this time her skin corpse cold. You smart from that touch, even more than the one where you take an iron rod to the spine, becoming knotted like an ancient tree in the Negev. It is months before you realize you are dreaming the memories of an alien skin, months before you choose between union and unraveling. Thank you.
Nafisa A. Iqbal. Thank you, Nafisa. James Butler-Gruett writes poetry, fiction, and book reviews. His work has been published in The Millions, Poetry London, Had, Broad Kill Review, and elsewhere. He received his MFA from the University of Arizona and is an associate professor of English at York University in York, Nebraska. Now it's time for James Butler-Gruett. Come on, James.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be in this anthology, and thanks, David, a lot. There are so many other great writers in here, and even in addition to the people who've been reading, I didn't even notice until I got this anthology that Rebecca Mazachewski is in here, who was my teacher in undergrad, who was incredibly kind to me for no reason at all. So that's very cool to be in here. So I'll read 3 poems. The first one is called Herman and Vernon. I dreamt, I knew 2 tubists. They joined us in the town orchestra. I don't know what I played, but I sat next to the tubists, so possibly trumpet. That's against type for me. I, who am not brassy or pursed, but mousy and loose. Nobody in the orchestra could tell them apart, the 2 tubists. But get this, they looked nothing alike. Herman was buzz-cutted, with crowded murine teeth, and Vernon languid, lissom, fond of L's. Yet, each time the conductor called on them, he frowned behind his razor-sharp baton and said, Vernon? Herman? Confused. Gwen, who played the recorder, which was key to my dream orchestra, made the same mistakes. I'm sorry, she said, but your names are so similar. Vernon and Herman would protest and whine, and I observed this from a chair, then overhead, and thought how rhymes twin us when nothing else does. Bullies get this right away. Bart, James, Lames. Don't you think, I asked Herman, it's less lonely with a homonym, more homely in the physical caught outside a dream? No, he said, and my name is Vernon. Forget that, I said. Listen, I shook him and wanted to say, Gwen loves you, is it true? But I could not speak or move. And I rose from bed and no one rhymed. There was no music, cars drove in reverse. I never saw a tuba. I spoke in perfect prose and couldn't hear it. Then the second one is called Rataplan. I just wrote this yesterday. There's a aria in an opera called La Forza del Destino called Rataplan. So this is after that. At a luncheon, my changeling father requests a heavy spoon so his tremors don't slosh the soup before en route to his mouth. A table mate speaks of steer-heading an issue with large, illustrative pewter bangles. Do I listen to her? No. Do I make eye contact with fellow pedestrians? Never. But do I yearn to forgive my enemies, to leave them in the past where they belong? Not a single chance. It's my year of no's and no yeses, guru-less negativity, $1 million reward for an impossible task, and I'm busy writing myself into Verdi's opera La Forza del Destino, alive with the love of glory, subject to forces glowing and possessive, oppressed by the duty of vengeance, not of spoon collecting. But I can make us worse or better. Of my father, a noble muleteer, the table woman, a black-eyed anchorite, trudging snow to snare tattoos. And soon my commute, a pilgrimage, interrupted by a rumble strip, a swerve in gravel crunch back toward the dotted yellow lines that tell God where to fold the earth. And then the last one is the one that's in the anthology. It's called Chill Lo-Fi Poem to Study and Relax To. This is just to say that I've eaten already. I won't be joining you if you catch my drift. Deep down, I think you're a cruel person, but I'm okay with that because I'm staying home, boxed up, left on ice, kept online. I was wrong too, I know, for saying what was plump and presenting it as rotten. So I've removed myself. It's no big deal. I'm in my bag. I'm in my Giga Drag, wrapped in animal playlists and studying ancient weapons. I'm innocent and dredged. POV, your choice. Made a way no one makes anymore. No one makes way anymore. I'm speaking from scratch. I'm writing always in Danielian for the sake of you, curled and cued across the line. You have me on WikiHow learning how to talk to people. I'm listening to trap beats, the texture and timbre of your Tims, and I can't see the storm outside because my window shows only the glare of my Chromebook screen, but I hear the plunk of storm pitch falling down the gutters and tarps being drawn over the pretty new vans and trucks of the neighborhood. Was that a hi-hat or a hailstone? Was that an 808? Or are you just happy? Who would know these days when no one checks their email like they used to and messages disappear unfestered and everyone keeps opening the same old windows? Eat grass, it suits you. I haven't been outside in ages. It's so hard to just stay where you want to stay or say only what you say. Everything's a work, everyone's work, and the screen light on your blue face, the shade thrown up to open mental tabs unpaid, the in before life full of deep fake love. Thanks.
James Butler-Gruett. Wonderful, James. Thank you. Before we proceed, I do want to mention, as you're listening to all this, if you get curious, I want you to keep in mind, and you can write it down, if you're curious to find out more about this book, we have a wonderful and beautiful website called greatweatherformedia.com where you can learn more about this book, our previous books. You can see some of the previous Zooms that we've done, events that we've done. There's a lot there, and you can sign up for a monthly email newsletter that we send if you're not on it already. So just a little commercial there. And then I do want to say, if anyone didn't hear it before, Giorgia Pavlidou, who's a wonderful writer that was going to be in the Zoom today, is not feeling well today. And she's determined to be in one of the upcoming Zooms, and you don't want to miss her and the crazy piece that she has in this book about Renard, the fox. But we're happy that one of our old friends and contributors to our books is subbing in for her today, and I'm about to introduce her. Okay. Karen Hildebrand is the author of Crossing Pleasure Avenue, Indolent Books 2018. Her writing on dance appears in Fjord Review and the Brooklyn Rail, and she has hosted episodes of the Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival podcast, Pillow Voices, originally from Colorado. She now lives in Brooklyn, as you will see on her shirt. Karen Hildebrand.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you, Jane, for this beautiful anthology. So I have 3 pieces for you today. This first one, well, a number of years ago, many years ago, I was part of an organization that brought the venerable Paul Taylor Dance Company to Denver for a performance. Unfortunately, we failed to sell enough tickets to cover our expenses. And to this day, I am mortified that we didn't have enough to cover their artistic fee. Hence the title of this poem that appears in Beacon Radiant. I stiffed the Paul Taylor Dance Company. I once introduced an important person by the wrong name in front of 1,000 people. Signed the card, "You fool." Peed my pants in 2nd grade. Ran over the neighbor's cat. Wore the wrong dress to the wedding. Forgot my lines. Forgot the steps. Forgot my underwear. Couldn't forget myself. Left the door unlocked. Peed my pants in 7th grade. Went the wrong direction. Gave the wrong instructions. Framed it with non-archival paper. broke the heirloom teapot, made my grandmother wait, left the baby on the doorstep, bled through the seat cushion, stole my brother's lucky dollar, asked the wrong person for a ride, told my father's secret, did my boss, called my professor slacker, gave away the wedding bouquet, didn't mind the gap, threw out the wrong version, drank from the wrong glass, slept on the wrong side, shrank the cashmere, failed to stand up straight, didn't return the call, inclined to limerence, deprived of the soul. I failed to talk. I talked too much, signed the bad check, poisoned the dandelions, sent the child away, believed in my deliberateness, left egg salad to rot in the sun, spotted tick fever trapeze without a net, sent my outrage to the wrong address, walked on the floor before it was dry, failed the blood test, was afraid to ask over and over and over. Nobody stiffs America's favorite dance company. So this next poem was started in a workshop, a great weather for media workshop that was led by the wonderful Puma Pearl earlier this year. And I think we were working with the idea of where you come from, where I come from, or the concept of home. So this is, I come from a clothesline of shirts. I come from a clothesline of shirts, not my size. I accessorize with a skeleton key, complementary colors that clash. Green Corvair, vast Cadillac. I come from wild turkey, mouth to mouth, rake of poker chips, a flush don't beat a full house. I come from smoke-choked, stiff petticoats, rasp of ballet slippers, shushing the floor. I come from spooned out the jar. Please knock, bell broke. When I close my eyes, I see red, a velvet curtain with pleats that hold their shape. Oh, how they sway when I slide my hand to part the drape. And then I'll leave you with this one. So I've been circulating a manuscript that includes a lot of poems about unplanned pregnancy, abortion, ambivalence about motherhood. And so that this is a piece from that collection. It's called Mother Nature. Sun beams the window, sparking dust motes and shining the wood floor. Gentle coo of a mourning dove sounds from my childhood. I go to open the door for some fresh air, but Mom says, no, the critters will get in. Outside, a cottontail trembles in the grass. Pair of racy robins, ginger cat on high alert. Sure enough, here in the front yard, an entire wild kingdom poised to storm the gaping door. I can feel the night crawlers pulsing. Turn my back for a minute, and a Canada goose is running a bath, nudging her goslings over the edge. A black bear holed up in the laundry, gorging on cheer. Down on my knees, what is this, coyote scat? When out from the bedroom, she comes, long suffering look on her face, pair of fox kits dangling from her teats. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen Hildebrand, for your reading and for subbing in today so effortlessly. Thanks again. Jeffrey Hecker is the author of Rumbleseat, San Francisco Bay Press, and the chapbooks Arc Aft, The Magnificent Field, Instructions for the Orgy, Sunny Outside Press, and Hornbook, Horseless Press. Recent work appears in South Dakota Review and Bennington Review. A fourth-generation Hawaiian-American, Jeffrey reads for Quarterly West and teaches at the Muse Writer Center in Norfolk, Virginia. Jeffrey Hecker.
Thanks, David. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I really appreciate it. It's so beautiful to hear, people who love language, honestly. We live in a time when it doesn't seem like too many people are taking very much notice of that, but they should. And I think that you all do, so that makes me feel very good. I'm going to read 4 poems. I'll try to fit all 4 in. Kind of a slow reader, so you'll have to forgive me. This is forthcoming in Bennington Review. Not sure when, but shout out to Michael Dumanis for kind of taking a chance on this one. I wrote these series of poems during the pandemic when I kind of lost the concept of time. And I really wanted to go backwards in time and just kind of rediscover some years, honestly. And I think it just occurred to me that as I started doing, more and more research that, it seems like every year people are obsessed with the tragedy and the innovation, no matter when they live. So I think that will continue to happen, hopefully, as we go forward. But it seems like everybody living in any time just thought it was all falling apart. So this is Sears, Roebuck and Company, 1934. Shoppers from the Dust Bowl, none reading Tender is the Night, seeking Westinghouse refrigerators, find Roebuck greeting folks at storefront and ask if he's Sears. Roebuck responds, "No, I'm Roebuck." They ask where Sears is. Roebuck responds, "Sears died 20 years ago. I'm Roebuck." Everybody is disappointed, extremely. Even Sears, especially Roebuck. Brookfield Zoo grand opens, features reptile house. Roebuck and visitors can't stop envisioning Smoothwell electric irons, so stop by Sears on way home. Roebuck asks, may he help find something, anything. Is this Sears, they ask? Your signage hangs too high up and snow blows, so we don't know where we are. This is Sears, Roebuck responds. But I'm Roebuck. Sears is gone. We'll try Y-bolts, one snaps, and all creep like common wall lizards out of Sears, past Roebuck. Thanks. And this is I've been getting funky with like persona poems. So this is Apple II, 1977. This appeared in South Dakota Review. And shout out to Leanne Barr for taking a chance on this too. This is in the voice of the Apple II computer from 1977. Like my G key, labeled Bell, notified your system before I transmitted any message to you. Like I couldn't bypass your mainframe just because I wanted to speak with you. Like, say I felt a mood to communicate to you. Say I felt a mood to communicate to you. I first had to signal your processor, like ringing your front door. Like if I needed to tell you I liked you, I had to change into a lavender tracksuit, run with you, like into my backyard, hide behind the jacaranda tree, like where my motherboard from kitchen window wouldn't detect us. Like your theory, my motherboard was the aerial layout of the campus of De Anza College. Like Cupertino, the city named after St. Joseph. Like the Franciscan friar, who non-believers saw as the average gymnast and believers saw fly. This poem comes from the anthology, and thanks David and Jane for hosting this again and taking a chance on this poem too. I was kind of bragging to David that one thing about great weather, is that it takes full advantage of helping people, who are involved in the avant-garde in a big way, which I think is bold and, just amazing, because there's so many magazines that seem to shy away from it. So this is Peddler's Village Scarecrow Festival, 1979. And Peddler's Village Scarecrow Festival is an actual festival. So you can find it north of Philly. It happens every year. People put out their scarecrows, and this was the first year that they ever did it, essentially. Peddler's Village Scarecrow Festival, 1979. First place scarecrow, rightfully Sid Vicious. Skylab, falling. Planet Jupiter elopes his own sister. Halo ring prong setting inspires compact disc. Swamp Rabbit bites Jimmy Carter, providing both immortality. Miss Abernathy spends 118 life hours stuffing ABBA, Boogeymen, Bjorn, and Benny. Ohio pays money for being related to Kent State victims. 3 Mile Island children bust in. 0 Nickelodeon subscribers. All suspicious of Happy Meals. Kentucky governor owns Kentucky Fried Chicken. Grandma is trying to forget. Cleveland elementary school shooter Brenda Spencer gives up only after police offer Burger King. Mardi Gras canceled. I cannot watch The Deer Hunter. And thank you. 79. Won't give that the year back, will we? This last poem originally appeared in the Mood magazine, which is a really nice online magazine from Canada that has takes a lot of chances on pop culture, and it's really, really cool mag. So, and again, thank you all for listening to me kind of ramble on. This is the Karate Kid's Golf and Stuff montage, 1984. So this is actually a scene from the Karate Kid, if you're familiar with the film, which really kind of helped, Asian Americans kind of like myself to, feel a little bit more acclimated, maybe, in a roundabout way. It was an important movie. It was important to me. So this is the Karate Kid's Golf and Stuff montage, 1984. You're on a first date with Allie Mills in your ma's Picheline olive station wagon. You're all passengers in the front seat because it's 1984. No middle console. The Family Fun Center offers arcade, games, prizes, even a water slide you didn't realize you needed bathing suits to enjoy. Baxter Robertson's Feel the Night begins to sing. You're competing at table hockey before the plastic bubble top was introduced. You're occasionally winning, sometimes losing, for once allowing yourself to give a puck and give up a goal. You need assistance with the putt-putt putter. You're wearing white socks, imitation Nikes, a smart smalt blue jacket. burnt chestnut pants. Your backseat in a buttery hovercraft that can move forwards or backwards, but for the time being oscillates giddy. Next, you're in command of the number 26 race car, then testing out trampoline weight capacity. You both fall together. You're not made for each other, but who cares? You're instantly in a photo booth. You're adorable. You just like your face in most shots, but Allie approves. You should share a pop, though decide to buy two. Everybody's holding each other in primary colors. Allie briefly chats with an autodidact named Eddie driving a convertible. Allie's ex-boyfriend, who has a history of assaulting both of you, pulls up after. One of his martial arts allies insults your ma's vehicle. It's as if everyone in the parking lot, also attracted to Allie Mills, knows when your date is over. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Let's hear it for Jeffrey Hecker. And Jeffrey, I will tell you that, we go through a long discussion when we're trying to figure out a name for the anthologies. The editors have, bring ideas. A lot of times they're nuggets from poems. And I attempted to advocate for Halo Ring Prong being the name of it was shot down, I assure you, but it's the thought that counts.
Absolutely. That makes my day, honestly. Appreciate it.
Now it's time for Carla Schwartz is a poet, filmmaker, and photographer. She's the author of Signs of Marriage and Intimacy with the Wind, both from Finishing Line Press, and Mother, One More Thing, Turning Point Books. Recent publications include California Quarterly, Remington Review, Triggerfish Critical Review, The MacGuffin, and Latin Literary Review. Carla was a 2023 recipient of a Massachusetts Cultural Council grant. Her poem, Pat Schroeder, was Our Mother, won the 2023 New England Poetry Club E.E. Cummings Prize. Carla Schwartz.
Hi, everybody. What a fantastic afternoon so far. And I'm going to start with my poem that is in the fantastic Beacon Radiant. It's on page 138 if you want to follow along. It's not a happy poem. It's written after a poem by C.P. Cavafy, and my poem is called Waiting for the Results. What is he waiting for? Pacing, agitated. The thesis committee makes their decision tomorrow. What can he do in the meantime? All in good time. The thesis committee makes their decision tomorrow. Why did he stay up all night tonight? Why did he sit on the stoop of his house and drink beer? Because the thesis committee makes their decision tomorrow, and he has nothing left to do but wait, worry. Why did he run off to his friend's house in anger? Why did he insist on driving after drinking, goading his mother to try to stop him? Why couldn't his friend convince him to stay? After drinking more, insist on it. Because the thesis committee makes their decision tomorrow, and even a friend can't change that when he expects to fail in any case. Why his sudden restless rage? While he shouted to his mom on the phone, what did his friend think? How lonely he must have felt, even among friends. What did he have in his pocket? Why the Narcan? Why the dope? What did he mean, get as high as I can? Because the thesis committee makes their decision tomorrow, and it's almost tomorrow now, everyone asleep in the house, and this might just stop tomorrow from coming. And I've been writing a lot of haibin lately, and this is a haibin called Cutaneous. It's a little experimental where the haiku is interspersed within the prose text. An assemblage of punching bags, wrinkled and imperfect. I can't resist buying the bubble pack of fresh figs. I pick one out, it's like my breast after the airbags blew, soft and tender, full of fear and promise. Cut open a fig and find a spoonful of sweet, a world of flesh. Keep a fig in the fridge long enough, it begins to mold. White splotches appear like the patches of cancer on my father's face, growing bigger every visit, so much you can't slice off the bad to salvage any pleasant remains. Each time I see him, the skin on his face is more masked, a scabbed up mess, a blotching, no amount of paring can save. Fear, full of fear and promise, a world of flesh, no amount of paring can save. That was the haiku. And next I will read to you that poem, Pat Schroeder Was Our Mother. I wrote it shortly after she died. And I was inspired by this quote I read of hers. And her quote is, I always wanted to be cremated and made into a doorstop so I could hold a door open, because basically that's what I wanted to do for people, is hold doors open. And I figured, since I was trying to do that in my political career, why not try it in the afterlife too? Pat Schroeder was our mother. I want to be ash. I want to be a doorstop. If you don't stick to your word, I'll call you Teflon. I want to be ash. I want to be a doorstop. I'd be your mother and yours and yours and yours. I want to be ash. I want to be a doorstop. I'm no god, but crack sunlight through your clouds. For all those who follow my footsteps, I'll stick out my neck. Make me your doorstop. Give me half a seat and think that's half a voice. I can stand and shout, oh, you'll hear my voice. You can give me shit, but I say it's my choice to eat and swallow what you give and spit it on your feet. I've been a working woman, so clean house as I see fit. When the house burns down, ashes, ashes, I'll be in it. And I'm going to leave with a poem that I wrote for, well, I wrote it recently and it came out in the New Verse News recently. And it's called A Week After Yet Another Cyanobacteria Watch on the Lake. It's been days since I've been here where the weather is cooling, days since I've swum here, a dish left on the counter, encrusted with old breakfast. I step outside, the sun bright, the wind bites my skin. It's a strong wind with harsh gusts, thrusting leaves, acorns a-scatter, but I suit up for the cold, for the cool, tap on my music and step out onto my paddleboard to face what the lake presents. A disorganized wind, flags pointing where they shouldn't, into the forecast direction rather than against it. I paddle with and against the swirling wind. I can't help think about Francine, the latest named storm, drawing its strength from the warm Gulf waters as I ignore the chill wind and slide off my board, leashed to my ankle to swim. I take off again against the current, waves wanting to turn my body, to go where I hadn't intended. So every so often I check my bearings to unstray. You might think I swim for punishment for not working the booths for the vote. for not dragging people's asses out to vote, for not acknowledging there's this hurricane mounting in the Gulf, building toward crescendo tomorrow to crash the Louisiana shore. And there will be one more and another unless we temper the warm waters. But I continue on my swim, not for punishment, but passion, to stroke against the waves, to keep myself from swallowing what the climate has begun to spoil, to keep myself afloat. Thank you all so much. It's wonderful.
From Lake Winnipesaukee, it's Carla Schwartz. Thank you, Carla. And Richard Loranger is a multi-genre writer, performer, musician, visual artist, and all-around squeaky wheel who has been working around the United States for over 40 years. They have lived in many parts of the country, including New York, Austin, Boulder, Ann Arbor, Chicago, and San Francisco, and currently lives and works in Oakland, California. They are the author of Mammal, Unit of Agency, excuse me, the urgency, so that should be the sequel. Be About It, Sudden Windows, Poems for Teeth, The Orange Book, and 10 chapbooks, and have writing in over 100 magazines and journals. Oi, Richard Loranger.
Hey, everybody, this has been wonderful. I'm going to end with a story that's in the book. I cut about a third of it out for time here, but I'm going to dive right in. Try not to log out if you get scared. The Extraction. The emotionally unstable dentist made his way to the office. He was a little out of true, but today was particularly bad, though he had no idea why. The shoe was particularly intense today as well, for as long as he could remember, even as a kid, his heart had felt like a clothes dryer with a single shoe clattering around inside. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk-unk. It was always there, ka-thunk. Sometimes it was a moccasin, and sometimes a tennis shoe, and sometimes a good old wingtip. Kabang! The shoes had gotten larger and louder, along with his anxiety, ever since the problem started with his practice. The dental community in this town had always been congenial, supportive, cooperative, its own little ecosystem. There were enough mouths to go around, at least until Winter showed up. Dr. Elias Winter. He came not to open an office, but to found a dynasty. It started with an office, sure, and seemed harmless enough, though instead of hanging a shingle announcing Elias Winter, DDS, he draped the storefront with a banner in carnival colors reading, "Happy Mouths!" Exclamation point. Few people, however, noticed the tidy circle R registration mark floating in the clouds and sunbeams after the name. Soon, there was a second Happy Mouths! Exclamation point registered trademark, and a third. These weren't new offices, though. He was buying up some of the less lucrative practices and spiffing them at the shiny new smile factories. Within a couple of years, Happy Mouths had become, if not a monopoly, certainly a hegemony, the dominant dentistry in town. They offered slightly lower prices for rushed, inattentive procedures that brought patients back again and again for fixes at slightly lower prices. Apparently, people were happy with that. Our fine dentist was one of the holdouts, the diehards, and his business suffered for it. The aid he brought to people at times shrank that shoe down to an ankle sock and made his life feel worthwhile. As his practice diminished, along with the help he could impart with rising bills, nervous staff, and sleepless nights, that hollow clattering grew and grew until he became short, tense, impatient. Then, a few months ago, Dr. Winter suddenly up and died. For a few days, our stalwart felt the load lighten. It even brought a perverse, if much-needed, smile to his face. Then he saw the man's half-page obit in the paper with the headline, "Local Dentist Dies, His Drill Silenced." And the shoe cranked right back up. It wasn't that he felt bad at his relief in the man's death, not a smidge, but the realization that it really wouldn't bring relief at all. That winter mouth machine was up and running and would continue on its path of destruction just as well without its heartless founder. This dire fact was somehow encapsulated in the accompanying photo, a well-known promo shot of the man celebrating his first grand opening by cutting a giant cake shaped like a tooth, the gleaming blade forever hovering before his beguiling grin and ruthless eyes. He'd always hated that picture, and now, knowing Winter's dark plan, it rattled him even more. He wished he'd been holding that knife over the monster's grinning head. Kathwack! Today, the shoe had grown to what felt like an old-style army boot. He could swear his chest panged each time that thick heel hit the churning drum of the dryer. Maybe it was the shitty sleep or the decisions he needed to make. But as usual, he wasn't sure. All he knew was he felt more pent than ever, overheated, skittish, endangered. And he had to work. He had to. He stepped into the office. There was just one patient waiting, a small older woman whom he didn't quite recognize. Then again, she hadn't opened her mouth yet. She smiled at him tentatively, and he nodded in return. His assistants buzzed him through to the back. Here I've cut out a chunk in which he hides in his office for a while, trying to calm down with various methods, some stranger than others. After a short while, he hoped not too long, he felt like himself again. The shoe had dwindled to a child's slipper, a quiet background rhythm. He took a long sip of the water, stood, put on a lab coat, put on a smile, and stepped through the door. His assistant was standing apprehensively by the chair, holding a clipboard. The patient sat still, staring at the ceiling. "Thank you, Leona," he said, taking the board. Then he turned to the woman. "How are we feeling today?" he asked, consulting her papers. "Mrs. Winter?" And he knew why she looked familiar. She was answering him, but he didn't hear a word because, blam, an ice skate hit the side of that dryer with such force it likely left a dent. It was her, the devil's wife herself. He knew it. That hateful photo flooded back. Him with the knife, gloating over the tooth cake. And there, yes, always there, a few steps to his right, and slightly out of focus, but clearly his, she stood. Her mouth was partly open as to cheer, her eyes wide with glee, her hands rising to applaud. He'd seen her in that photo so many times and had never registered how central she was, how the picture, ostensibly of the dentist, turned upon her and her enigmatic reaction to the scene like a vortex. What was she doing? She looked like an innocent spouse swept away in the moment, but another glance, a shift of the eye suggested a shadowed maestra orchestrating, canting, and casting dark magics. Which was it? He had no way to know, but that was definitely her. This woman, he did know that, and now she was here. Why was she here? All this in a flash, and now they were waiting for him to act. He felt like a live wire had been planted in his chest. His mind was racing. The room was too bright, and that shoe was slamming so loudly that everything else was background. His heart felt like it might explode. From a distance, he felt himself still smiling. He heard himself say in his most professional voice, "Let's take a look at that." He saw his hand reach for a tray of instruments and select a large examination pick. As it passed in front of him, it gleamed in the brightness. Such a beautiful tool, he thought, as he often had, admiring the carbon steel hook at the end, infinitely slender, infinitely sharp. So much more elegant than that blunt knife of the devil. Kathunk! Was it reflecting light or glowing from within? He lowered it toward the woman's face. No, slightly out of focus, mouth partly open, staring blankly. The vortex. He felt his body fill with fire. Kaslam, kaslam. Then he looked in her eyes and began to fall. He tumbled through her pupils, widening like a well, and into her gorgeous mind. The electricity racking his body was overcome by a comforting thrum that seemed to emanate from deep inside her. What is this? He wondered. He'd never felt anything like it, and he knew that it felt absolutely right. He needed this more than anything. Why hadn't he known? And further, strangely, he knew that she felt the same, all in an instant. He didn't know how, and he didn't care. The comfort was unimaginable, almost glorious, though his heart was still pounding. Rather than stifling, it felt expansive, welcoming, and totally connected. He'd been so wrong about her, and his memory of that photo shifted once again to what felt most true. Her mouth was open, just as much to cheer as in distress, her eyes wide with long-known fear, her hands raised in defense. This was not some conspirator of ruin or malevolent sorceress. This was a dear living being who'd been trapped and dragged by terrible forces, scarred and bashed, all the while wanting nothing more than to find an open heart. Was his heart open? He might not have said so a minute ago, or perhaps ever, but it sure felt like it now. Somewhere in there, he let out a gasp, and while his upheaval felt like an eon, a transformation, he'd just been staring blankly into her eyes. They'd been staring into each other's eyes for a long, drawn-out moment. Are you all right, Doctor? His assistant broke the spell, and he came to the surface to her concerned smile. Yes, he said, I'm fine. He smiled back at her, beaming, and he was so fine. He was in love. He heard what he could swear was a shoe skittering across the floor as that dryer filled with the freshest, sweetest linens you could want, tumbling, warm and soft and joyous in his chest. The extraction. Hope that was okay. Thanks.
That was very okay, Richard Loranger.
Thanks.
Wow. Wow. Hey, we made a beautiful reading today. I feel like this is one of the first times that we put together a reading and we didn't really know most of the readers. Of course, we had accepted you to the book, but in order to put together a program, and it all just flowed marvelously, I think. So thank you to the readers. I want to thank our guests in the Zoom box today. A lot of people came out, including other contributors to the book, which, hey, I think you should come back and see when they read in one of the upcoming Zooms, since they were scouting you today. The folks that are watching the live stream on the Great Weather Facebook page, too, thank you very much. And I want to remind you all, as I mentioned before, our gorgeous website where you can find out more about this book, greatweatherformedia.com. And Jane put in the chat here that right now there's a special on if you buy a copy of Beacon Radiant or one of our single poet collections, which again, you can go to the website to check out the diversified bunch of single poet collections we've done. You get a second book free. Is that what I saw? Something like that. Ooh, I'm trying to roll back to make sure I'm not. Yeah. And a free surprise book. Awesome. So maybe you want to take a look at that and take a look at the other lovely surprises that we have there on the website, see what we've done and what we're going to do and whatnot. And I thank Jane Ormerod, our founding editor, for the marvelous job she's done behind the scenes today, making this technical thing happen. Success, success, success. We can go out into the world with our heads held high, feel a little better about things. Okay. It's called Beacon Radiant from Great Weather for Media.